Okay, this is a message that I wrote for you, got 2004. Mike Site, thank you for sharing your life story. You have in your young life faced immense challenges, including displacement from your home as a result of political violence. In spite of all you have been through, you remain eager to learn to live a life, eager to strive for nothing but the best and overcome challenges. I have a picture of you with your beautiful daughter. You are a wonderful, caring, young black father. I know you have limited financial means to care for her adequately. I know too that you have unlimited love for her. Keep on striving for nothing but the best. You deserve the best because you are the best. I'll read Nhlanhla even when Nhlanhla is not here. Nhlanhla Mabizela. What do I say about you? Humble with a subdued, naughty smile and a twinkle in your eye. You are a leader. You often lead without being aware of your capabilities or even believing in the magnitude of the role that you are destined to play on this planet. I remember you in one of our conflict-ridden group meetings. I remember how hurt you were. I remember the things you said. You threatened to leave the men's group because you did not want to associate yourself with any negativity. Deep down, I knew that you would not quit. You are the type of man who never gives up on himself. Innocent Toto. Deep is the word that comes to mind when I think of you. There is so much more to you than meets the eye. You, like most young black men, had a difficult childhood. You are steady and quiet, a man of few words. You remind me so much of my father, who is a deeply sensitive and feeling human being. Living in a society that does not have much room for men who can feel can be very alienating and painful. A feeling man, that's what you are. So these are the words that I wrote in 2004 in honor of you, innocent Mike Nhlanhla. It's been a long journey, but it's continuing. Thank you all, Tiro, Innocent, Mike, Sidwell, for continuing with the baton. Today is the 8th? The 8th of June, 2021. It's a very significant day for me on many levels. 30 years ago in 1991, I was a research officer at the Women's Health Project at WITS. And one of the places that I chose to work in was Alexandra Clinic. I did a research study on domestic violence as a public health concern. And what I did was review records. I think it was around 189 records, medical records in casualty of women who come in to report with injuries. And what I wanted to see was if the doctors have been trained to identify how do they diagnose domestic violence, and found that actually the medical model does not equip healthcare practitioners to identify abuse. So it was like, okay, broken arm, laceration on the face, broken leg, and there was no further discussion in terms of who what caused this, and what is the situation when we discharge you and go home. So I used the study to set up ADAPT. Because at that point, as a researcher who had moved from different departments at VETS, I was tired of doing research for the sake of research. And the question that I have been asked a lot is, why Alex? Because I grew up in Mabopane, I grew up in Soshanguve, and my answer is always, Alex chose me. So Alex is my alma mater. Alex is an academy where I learned activism and how to turn theory into practice. So it's exactly 30 years ago when I did the survey. And then ADAPT started. We started off working with women. And then later on, I went to a conference in Ireland, in Dublin, and I met Luke Daniels, who was a counselor at a center called Everyman Center in London. And then when I spoke to Luke about the work that I do, and I was fascinated by the fact that there are organizations across the world that are working with men. And that was the time of the political unrest in Alex. My office was on the other side of the building. I remember those days when violence was like serious, gunshots, everything. I always have a memory of standing at the window and just seeing people run and looking at some people also dying. So violence and death was a common thing at that time, even when I was in Ireland. And I was listening to men who were speaking about healing. I was listening to men who were speaking about addressing their wounds, their deeper wounds. I was listening to Luke Daniels talking about the work that he does with men in London. And then I invited him to come here. And also another inspiration why I started working with men is because I was raised by a wonderful, beautiful, powerful father. I was raised by a man who was always present. So I never stopped believing in the goodness of men. Even when I was dealing with abuse, even when I was giving counseling to women who have been stabbed with screwdrivers or whatever, you know, there was something in me that refused to stop believing in the goodness of men. And also I want to mention that the initial seed also of starting ADAPT was planted when I was a nurse. I was a sister, a registered nurse in the emergency department in Garankuwa. And I remember at that time a woman was brought in on a wheelchair and an axe was stuck in her knee bone. And I remember thinking that, okay, my nursing training, medical model does not give me, does not teach me how to deal with a situation other than sending this woman to theater and other than suturing the laceration. It doesn't teach me how to suture the soul. It doesn't teach me how to mend the broken heart. It doesn't teach me to understand why a human being would take an axe and cut up someone else. So the medical model didn't teach me that. So then we started the men's program. We kind of put the word out in the community that we, as ADAPT, we want to start a men's program. And a few came, and some of you are in the room today. And the next step was also to use theater as a tool for transformation, when we did the play called Komeng, and which was directed by Sello Magega. It started first in Alex, and then we then took it to the Market Theatre. After every show, after every performance, then we invited key leaders, key men, to speak to what they have seen. So I am privileged today to be amongst you again after so many years in recording what is the first vlog of Marumo Fatsi. Marumo Fatsi is an idea that came to me in a form of a dream, in a sense that there's a way in which we must find medicine for the soul. There's a way in which we must find a way of reaching to the hearts and the soul of people. But you cannot reach the hearts and the soul of people if they live in conditions that we are familiar with in Alex. So there's different kinds of poverties. The poverty that we speak about is material poverty. But you can also address material poverty and still end up with spiritual poverty and still end up with mental poverty. So this process that we are involved with as Africa Ikalafe, an organization that I have started, is to try and find a holistic intervention to the issues that we're dealing with. So it is quite a privilege, excitement actually, to meet you, Tiro. You were not part of the play itself, but you've always been there as a participant. To see you again, you were there actively from the beginning, even as part of the play itself. And you have kept contact with me over time. And then you, Mike, you're still here. And Tanta was talking about you last week when we were recording a podcast, was mentioning how after every session you would go and pick up your daughters. And that we were talking about fatherhood, that fatherhood is not necessarily only about money. Fatherhood is about being present, in your children's lives. And you're still as passionate with theater as you were before. And you, Sidwell, who represents the continuation of what we have started, your passion with the work and the work that you do in the communities. And that somehow it feels like the breakdown is even going deeper and deeper. And the question that I was asking is, do we give hope? Do we lose hope and give up? Or do we keep going? So before we answer that question, maybe invite Mike and, to share your reflections.
Basically, in 1997, when we were recruited to be part of Adapt as men, as part of the solution, Adapt. Obviously, this is Pile. In fact, I was an activist, in fact, even before the party, but I was not a political one, but just socially. At the same time, I was a boxer. So, but I'm happy. I'm glad at least Adapt has played a big role. In fact, to be part of that group, first group, it played a big role in Bilonyam because it brought us together, and then it taught us brotherhood. As much as we come from different backgrounds and all of that, but it taught us brotherhood, which is sazana ukuthi singabantu, because you know that time we were fresh from political violence, Alexandra, Mike, Tiro, yes. So we were kind of like traumatized into his name. There was no a clear cut to go to okay, see ya go pick us. But then adapt brought a big light on my life in terms of misunderstanding and be able to deal with whatever that I come across in terms of relationships nabo mama. And I said, obviously, we see my challenges nabo sisi esikhathini esiningi. The only way that we could deal with the problem, more the problem was sisi. We asked good to I'm shy, it was finally as Mbiza ngamagama, name calling and all of that. Honestly speaking, adapt for ukuthi usiqoqe Matsilo. Sibe party adapt. It has helped me a lot as not just as a man but as a human being to understand ukuthi we need to look at ourselves first as a human being.
What are the challenges that you are still facing now, so many years later, as a man in Alex?
I think first things first, I want to question unemployment, Alexandra, as a man, is a big problem. It's a very big problem. Because as a man and a young man in Alex, not only in Alex, in fact, all over, if you're not employed as a man, you don't get that respect that you are expecting to be getting from Abantu. You understand? Because even if you chat up a woman, for instance, the first thing that person wants to know before he could be able to know your last name, he doesn't ask you about your last name. He asks you about what is it that you are doing for a living. You know, that's the biggest problem. You are attracted to this person. You are interested in this person, but that person will give you a chance for to culminate. At least I'm an executive guy, or I have this position. Then you'll have that sort of like a privilege. Need a chance to culminate. Had it not been for I've undergone those teachings as I adapt, I don't think what I'll be here. In fact, and I say, or still looking the way I'm looking now. And I said, because at least I'm still together in one piece. And I said, I can sort myself out, I can look after myself and all of that, in spite of those challenges.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that the challenges are there, but what is different is your ability to navigate them. That if you had not been through ADAPT's men's program, as you say, you wouldn't be here. That those challenges would have crushed you.
It would crush me, seriously, they would have crushed me, because I only have an idea as to how to deal with those things. I would go with the flow.
Yeah.
I know I understand. I know.
A man bar late. The proverb that says Monna late. And what do you do with the pain as a man? So Tiro, I want to come to you as a participant. You have been part of the ADAPT Men as part of the solution program. How did that impact on you, the kind of man that you are today?
As men, as providers, and in Nakibile, a provider Kilimunya. Like I go necessary school go tabisong. I had to rekele ngwana ko gae wa uswa uniform ya school.
Yeah.
And
where did you get the money?
I got a scholarship go tabisong for performing arts and visual arts at that time. So they were giving money every month, and nakenale privilege out ke tswa ko schoolong, and then ba mbitsa gore ke tlo attend those things. Tswana lo neng ka re ke a bereka and then come back. So that on its own inkeditse motswadi before ke ba motswadi.
Yeah. And because you were a parent before you became a parent, how did that impact on you as a man now?
I play a major role. I've got a connection le ngwana wa ka wa moshimane o na le 9 ke 10 ulo, and even though nna mama ga re separated, but I made sure for every day ke mo, because Nike didn't get an opportunity ya gore the father abe mo all the time. So I want to change things.
You want to break that cycle.
I break that psyche, so that I could be a better parent for him. Gore le ena ka osane ha tlo ba le motho wa hae I say the same thing. I kgone ho ithuta from kona, because I think the sekolo se thoma ka mo lapeng before it's tswela ko ntle, because normally the parents tse dingata di na le isa bana ko dikolong, they expect gore di teacher be batswadi ba bona, and then bona ba feile gore ba ntwene be batswadi ba bana. Ha ngwana tswa sekolong e ba problem, o ka raka dula go the whole day,
right,
a ska tlhola a boya mo gae.
right.
Yes.
And Mike and you know, one of the things that we used to do, one of the exercises that we used to do was being conditioned as a boy, growing up as a boy. Do this, don't do this, act like this. You said a little bit about it, you know, when you were talking about your experience, or and when you meet girls, whether they agree with you or not, you force yourself on them. And maybe a question to both of you, reflecting on those lessons of that time. Conditioning as a boy child, how does this link to the current rape culture?
Honano, back then, I don't know who it was called rape, or because of that's how we were conditioned. Because of Honano, I think it's still the same, but now it went. How acceptable? It's out of control. Like, because of back then, we are going to do like if how Michelle Wahana Wadumela Wahana Watwana to Jola Len, whether he likes it, whether what
Jola Lena meaning who foster
like no Jola before even Roba. I get how Mlato Michelle our to Rano Abad or Foster about go. That's where it started. Until I guess to hail until he said yes, then the second one how I learn go Munya how.
So that's rape.
For me, I mean, that's rape. For me, that's it. That's how it is. It's for me. I call it rape. I get wahan.
Yeah.
Wahan, that's you forcing a person. That's rape. And now these days, they're using different methods, like compared to our one, because these days they drag them. Baba Nusad goes Baba Nusan's on our Papa and they sleep with them, and even they taking pictures. That's where it's for now. It's because of system, because a lot of people have learned. They know about the rape. They know that if a woman says no, it says no. They know all those things. They know. Now they come up with new avenues of trying to dodge the whole thing. You know, you need to leave it like that. But now they've come up with new methods. The method is use drugs, it's use alcohol, which is maybe they call it with spike, or they put a more drug on it.
Yeah, hygiene and what.
Yeah, about the hygiene and other things. Or abe lamb, and then those are today's methods that they use. Because a lot of boys knows when a woman says no, they know that says no.
Yeah.
But now they have to come up with the new strategies, which is those are the strategies that they use. That's why it's different with us, I think.